Unfortunately, so many unique games have been barred from releasing on certain platforms and in certain regions due to content restrictions. Even if it is properly rated, these developers are still told no. And now we're finding out that Xseed is having to halt the entire Western release of the Corpse Party Tetralogy pack due to not complying with current platform guidelines. I have a few different things to show off, but before I get into the topic, if you enjoy the content I create, check out the links in the description, join the community in my live streams, and consider supporting through Patreon or YouTube memberships. Now, I of course think that if something is properly rated, it should be allowed to release on different platforms. I do not think that it is okay at all whatsoever that adult-themed content is barred from release just because somebody else might not like it. There are so many amazing games and products out there that are clearly aimed towards adults that are allowed to release from large companies, but when it comes time for indie or double A's to launch a title, these platforms act extremely differently because it really does all boil down to profits. If they can make a boatload of money off of something and they are going to lose out on a boatload of sales if they cancel it, they say, you know what, you can launch this content, even if it does technically, quote unquote, not comply or violate platform guidelines. But in the case of Xseed, they have faced major problems over the years, and now Corpse Party is facing an issue because Xseed has released a statement that Corpse Party Tetralogy's pack Western release has been canceled due to not complying with current platform guidelines. After a brief period where Nintendo seemed to be censoring less than Sony, it seems they're intent on spoiling any goodwill that they built up on that front. Now, this could just be because they are extremely inconsistent with what content is and is not allowed on their platform. It could be because they are facing problems with payment processors. Maybe they just don't want any sort of controversy surrounding them. Either way, it is extremely unfair. They allow games like, let's say, The Witcher to release on their platform, which is crazy that The Witcher 3 even runs on a Switch. You have games like Cyberpunk releasing on the Switch. You are talking about adult-themed content being allowed in those cases, but not here. The big reason why they ended up blocking the release of something like Corpse Party is because of the mature themes. The intense violence and the blood and gore are very clearly why this was targeted. I don't even think that it was because of like the sexual references and the partial nudity or strong language. I just think that it is blood and gore. And this isn't really shocking given how intense censorship has been over the years in the video game industry. Basically, anything could be targeted if it's not from the top 1% of companies in this industry. And Nintendo, in, of course, the 90s, 2000s, was very bad with censorship. I would say in the mid 2010s, they actually started to get a lot better with the release of the Switch, though now things are kind of looping back around. If that's because of internal rules, if it's because of external pressure, we don't really know. But either way, they've had to cancel this entire release in the West because of platforms. And yeah, I'm going to call it out because I think it is ridiculous. Again, I think if something is properly rated, it should be allowed. There's plenty of content out there that I myself do not like, or I myself do not consume, like the Saw movies, for example. I don't like them personally. Would I ever sit here and say they need to be banned, they need to be censored? Absolutely not, because there's other adults that find a certain level of entertainment from them. And just because it's not a movie series for me doesn't mean other people can't enjoy them. And we've heard the child excuse a lot. We need to protect the children. We need to save the children. And I, of course, think it is extremely important that children are protected from certain content online. But I do not believe that the entire internet should be censored for them. Adults should protect their children. Parents should be at fault if their children come across that content. There are parental controls on every major platform, on every Switch and Xbox and PlayStation, and on computers and phones, and you as a parent are the one who needs to protect your children. Of course, there is a very important quote that everyone needs to remember. Censorship is telling a man he can't have a steak because a baby can't chew it. Yeah, children should be protected, but also, I don't think that this content should be censored for everybody or banned from the internet because somebody might come across it and might not like it, or somebody who is not the proper age comes across it. It says the Western branches of these companies are acting as unnecessary gatekeepers of accessibility when there is clearly a market for those games. Pre-orders were already taken. It should never be the case that a publisher needs to cancel a release because of these ridiculous and often ever-changing guidelines, and I completely agree. Here is their entire statement. It is kind of long, but we're going to read it. We know how much you are anticipating the release of this pack, though we previously released entries in the Corpse Party series on console platforms and digital storefronts in the West. We were informed that contents of several games in this pack did not comply with current platform guidelines. As a result, we are unable to release these games as intended and have subsequently canceled the physical release of it, as well as the digital offerings of previously unreleased games featured in the pack. We apologize for any confusion and disappointment this may have caused, and of course, this is not their fault. This is not Xseed's fault. This is not the developer's fault. It is so important to call it out for what it is: bullshit on the end of these platforms. They have released Corpse Party games in the past with no problem, and now all of a sudden it is an issue. I do want to say that I believe it's more so because of the payment processors, but at the same time, Nintendo could come out and say that. They could come out and say, this isn't really our fault. We're just doing our best to keep our platform running. And I suppose I would understand that, but they're not doing that because they don't want to cause issues. It says, granted, Japan has been going down a similar path with censorship, ethics departments, ESG, DEI, etc., but a lot of that could have been solved by removing Western influence as the Japanese now chase global standards, which is a good point, but it is also important to point out that everything we have seen happening in the West is like beta tested in Japan. We have seen payment processors be censoring Japanese entertainment in Japan for years now. They were trying to test how much they could get away with in Japan, and then it's like they open the floodgates in America. For example, we have seen platforms completely obliterated, like Manga Library Z, Ken Akamatsu's platform, because payment processors block their services from being used. We have seen censorship running rampant in Japan. And yes, I do think that ESG and DEI initiatives in these ethics departments are at fault. I do think that they are a major problem. And luckily, we're seeing some companies potentially making big changes, like Square Enix. They have decimated their Western branch. They've fired hundreds of activists over the past couple of days to weeks. And it does seem like maybe they're going to turn things around. But at the same time, companies, while yes, can fire the activists, we still face the problems with the platforms. It also says, luckily, in this case, it appears that the Japanese release of the collection has an option for English text. So while it is an unfortunate situation, it is still possible to enjoy the games as an English player. And this is extremely important. You can still purchase it and import it, and it's really not that hard or that expensive to do if you're really that interested. You can head over to Play Asia. You can purchase the Corpse Party Tetralogy pack with the multi-language options. They do have free worldwide delivery if you spend over $80. I actually purchased a lot of games on this website. I highly recommend it if you're interested in picking this up and consuming this content, but at the same time, it is still a little bit more effort, and it is harder than just going to the eShop or purchasing a copy off of, let's say, Amazon, for example, and it does suck that this is happening, and there are a lot of people that are luckily calling this out, a lot of people that are extremely upset over this, and you love to see people speaking up and defending their hobbies, and that is what we need to constantly do. That's a big reason why I am so vigilant on this channel with covering news and trying to let you guys know what is happening in the world of entertainment. But I will definitely be keeping my eye on this situation, covering it again in the future. If there are any major updates, make sure to follow me on social media. If you enjoyed this, subscribe to the channel and give this video a like. And if you didn't, give it a dislike. I appreciate your support either way, but I'll talk to you all again in the next video really soon.